Hi, I'm Jack Pylan, D license 17377, member of the USPA for over 20 years. The story I have to tell is why I started skydiving. Back in the early days, we call them the blood and guts days, we were learning how to skydive. We used old military gear, and I was a pilot out of a drop zone, actually an airport that my dad owned, and I was doing crop dusting, and they had some people doing some jumping out there, and they said, why don't you come jump? And I thought that would be exciting. And so I put on this round parachute, jumped out, followed after a full 10 minutes worth of training. I thought I knew everything. Being young and dumb, I jumped out of the parachute and found out that you've got to be strong and being young, because when I hit the ground, I had an oscillation under T10, oscillation where the parachute is swinging left and right. And when I got close to the ground, I just barely missed the ground on one of the oscillation swing, and it kind of slammed me in the ground. I ended up with 2 black eyes and a bloody nose. And after I landed, I thought, that's not for me. I'm going to go fly the airplanes. So I spent the next 20 years flying skydivers. I was a pilot and get to fly skydivers, and if they were dumb enough to jump out, I'd just take them up because they paid for the gas for me to fly in the airplane. I just love flying. Then one day when I was flying along, some guys got in the door. They were playing around. They had a premature deployment of the pilot chute and went over the tail. And of course the jumper went under the tail, and it hit the elevator and jammed my controls. Not completely, but they were stiff so much that I was worried about being able to jump. And I was wearing a sport rig, a pilot emergency rig, but it was a round one. And I was thinking, oh, I'm not going to jump this thing. It'll kill me landing it. My better choices are flying the airplane. So I took the airplane, and with pilot verbiage, I used power and trim, and less power I was sinking, more power I got a little flight. So I was able to make a long approach to the runway, got on the runway, and as I floating down the runway, the tail finally fell off, and the plane crashed on the runway, successfully crashed because it kind of rolled out on the things. And after several sleepless nights, I thought, I should have jumped. So I got back to the drop zone the next day and said, I need to learn how to jump out of this airplane, not get over my fear of that parachute. And at that time, they had squares. And the wonderful thing is that I didn't know that jumping that square is that I got out, did a static line jump, so I jumped out and had the parachute open. And once it opened, I looked up. It was a wing. It was a square wing. It inflated like an airfoil. And I said, this is a flyable wing. I pulled left, and it kind of turned left. And I pulled right, it turned right. And I said, this is great. Matter of fact, on that very first jump, I landed dead center of the P's and won the case of beer. Haven't hit the P's since then, but I did have a good job hitting the P's. And it was a kind of metamorphosis. That's what taught me that parachuting is just another form of flying an aircraft of some type. And that was 9,747 successful jumps ago. My first jump story, that was kind of my first jump. My first reserve story is I was coming out the drop zone one day. I had about 150, 200 jumps. I'm starting to get in the groove. I think I know what's going on. And I go out the drop zone, and just like typical skydivers, you come to the drop zone, and when I open the car, they're hollering, fill the load, fill the load. They always wanted the full aircraft load. And so I grabbed my gear, put on my shoulder, climbed on the airplane, we took off. As we're climbing the altitude, I'm putting my gear on. If you recognize, I didn't do any ground check. So I put my gear on, and I'm thinking, looking out the window, looking at some land, thinking about a real estate deal I just got out of a meeting with, and I'm not on the skydive. And we're going up to 10,000 feet, and about 9,000 feet, I looked at the other 4 guys and said, what are we doing? And they real quickly put a skydive together, and we said, okay, great, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. So we climbed out, and of course I'm climbing out on the step. Well, as I climb out on the step, I realized my leg straps aren't even tight. I'd put my gear on, but I hadn't tightened anything up. So I'm in the door, tightening up my leg straps, trying to get things together, and making sure I at least had all the straps on. So that's the first mistake I made. The second mistake I made is that we got out and we left the airplane, did our points, and we're supposed to break off at 5, but we pushed on down about 4,000 feet. Then we decided to break off, and I reached back for my pullout, couldn't find it. It was stuck in the pad. I never did my pre-flight checklist. My pullout stuck way back in the pouch. So I'm in free fall, trying to dig out my pilot chute, and it dawned on me, oh, you're in free fall. Oh, you're low. So I immediately reached up, grabbed my reserve handle, and went for reserve and looked at my hand, and sure enough, nothing was in it. I'd practiced in the air exactly what I practiced on the ground. At that time, everybody used to practice grabbing their handles and pulling out, but they always let go because they didn't want to open the reserve. And I did exactly the same thing. What I practiced on the ground, I did in the air. Of course, I'm at full terminal velocity, below 2,000 feet, doing this stupid stuff. Had to go back a second time, hooked it with my thumb this time, pulled out, and my friends said they saw me going below the tree line, they started calling for the ambulance and everything else and headed for where I was going. But I basically had a 2-second canopy ride. I got the thing out, it stood me up, opened, and as I reached for my toggles, I hit the ground. So from that point on, I spent many years, and I still spend now, that when I see people practicing the reserve ripcord, I make sure they hook their thumb in it and don't practice letting go and pulling your hand out, just grab it. And I want people on safety day and anytime they can, practice grabbing it and pulling it, because when you're under stress, you're going to do what you practice. And if you practice letting go, when you're under stress, you're going to practice letting go under stress. So that's a story from personal experience. Do not let go of that thing when you practice.
Who were some of your heroes when you were into skydiving?
Well, when I first started skydiving, a gentleman by the name of Jerry Scrimshire was learning how to jump, or actually teaching people how to jump, and I was always a pilot for him. He and I talked a lot of flying things. Matter of fact, I was part of the group of the North Texas skydiving area, because we weren't going to be part of USPA. They had too many rules. I was with the skydiving organization that had no rules. And as it turned out, one day Jerry walked up to me and said, "Jack, you've got to be part of this organization. We have people that it's an organization getting together to kind of make this thing safer." And of course, I'm the safest. I don't need any rules, but I can be safe. And that particular day was a time we went up and jumped, and I sit there and did what I was supposed to. I was taking a training jump, taking a girl in a tandem, doing a training jump, and teaching her a tandem ride. Well, when we got on the ground, the girl said she had no fun. And I said, "What do you mean no fun?" "Well, it scared me too much, so I'm going to sue you." And of course, this litigious situation, she sued me. And Jerry Scrimshire came in and said, "You know, he did everything right. He followed these rules. We have an organization of many, many people that do the same thing, and we don't hurt anybody. And the fact that you were scared was, nothing that he could have had anything to do with." And he, at that time, taught me that the association within his organization as USPA, and association with following what the common practices are, is the best way to teach. And it made me a firm believer that in unity and in a group, we have a stronger voice, and we actually keeps me from doing something stupid by somebody else reminding me that, we've done this before too, and maybe you shouldn't be doing it. I've since then pretty well tried to get my safety procedures down and persistent, where I don't change them. As far as one of the most scariest times, it really wasn't a jump. It was a pilot. I was a pilot for skydiving. I was flying a Lockheed 12 back in the 80s. Lockheed 12A. It's the same. That's one size bigger than the aircraft that Amelia Earhart flew. I had purchased this airplane as a young man. I was going to make money in aviation, and anybody in aviation knows that doesn't happen very often. But I was flying around drop zones, taking skydivers up in my Lockheed, and I was flying this Lockheed, and I was hearing skydivers tell me how the prop wash was really making them tumble when they get airplane. Basically, the tumbling was that we hadn't learned the concept of relative wind and learned the wind push out of the airplane, jumping at airplanes. We were just falling out and tumbling. But they were complaining about the prop wash really making it hard to exit. My airplane had too much prop wash. So the smart, dumb, young aviator decides, "I'll fix them. I'm going to feather that left engine so they can't say anything about prop wash when they get out." And of course, at 14,000 feet, I holler, jump, run, and they run to the tail of the airplane. I reach up and feather the left engine. About the time the aircraft pitched up, the tail went black, and I realized, uh-oh, this isn't smart. And I pushed the nose over and reached down trying to start the aircraft. About the time we did the most beautiful hammerhead stall and threw a bunch of skydivers out. And basically I was upside down, falling backwards, tail first, and had a bunch of skydivers stuck in the airplane, a bunch of them sprung outside of the aircraft. As I fell through the air, trying to get recovery, matter of fact, one of the skydivers said he was on his back because he could see the bottom of the airplane. He arched harder to roll over, and the harder he arched, the closer he got the airplane. What he didn't realize is actually he was thrown out, and he was actually above the aircraft, and the harder he arched, the closer he got to it. So we fell away, and somewhere during that flight, I don't know who did it, but somewhere somebody put the gear and the flaps down, so when I got nose down, the airplane didn't pull the wings off. And I lost control at 14,500, and I gained control of the aircraft doing 390 knots at about 1,200 feet. The maximum airspeed for the airplane not pulling wings off is 280, so I was 100 knots above maximum speed. I don't know how I got out of that thing. But I landed it. The only damage to the airplane, I bent one of the flaps because it was down with all the high speed. And I spent the rest of the night on the ground staring at the airplane, thinking about what I did, and realized that I need to fly the airplane. And well, you make skydivers happy, but I need to fly the airplane and quit trying to scare me or the other jumpers.
So Jack, tell me about your skydiving nickname.
Oh, the Lucky Monkey. Back when I started doing a lot of tandems, I was jumping at a drop zone called Skydive Texas, and we were talking about nicknames, military nicknames, and while I was in the military, they'd give me the nickname of Lucky Monkey. And so we actually I had a little monkey that somebody gave me, and I put on my helmet, and we're going to wear it on my helmet just to kind of, some people were wearing foxtails and sheepskins and things like that, but I had a monkey on my helmet. And I got on the airplane, and the first time I put the helmet on, we took off, and the pilot on the airplane said he hit a dust devil, but consequently the airplane stalled and it crashed. We had 28 people on board. Me and one other person are the only people that did not get any injuries. Everybody else had broken bones, broken eggs, broken legs, broken hands, broken bones. And so I got lucky with that monkey. And of course, when I do remember during the crash, I remember using that monkey as a padding, and I used it to protect my head against the aircraft wall. And when I got ready to pull out of it, there's actually a screw about 3.5 inches that went through the head of the monkey, and not my head. So it's kind of one of those things. Everybody calls me a lucky monkey, and not that I'm superstitious, but I take chances. So now when I jump, I carry the monkey, and I call him my cameraman, or he has the license when I go with me, and it kind of gives my tandem passengers a little bit of comic relief when we're doing that. So that's kind of been the trademark of me flying around carrying my monkey. My pure enjoyment is when some days when we have a big clear day with a lot of cumulus clouds. I'm the one that I'm not the free fall junkie as much as I like to get out at 14,000 feet and do a hop and pop, open my parachute, and just fly around, kind of hover around, work around the clouds. Of course, I'm always going to keep my cloud distances, but fly around in between the clouds. When the cloud decks are about 5,000, 6,000, 8,000 feet, you get to just fly around them and look at the beauty of the sky and look at the beauty of the clouds and look at the beauty of the green or the brown in Texas. But just enjoy the ride down. I haven't gone any parasailing yet, but I think that's the next challenge. I might try it because I just love just hanging around under the parachute and just enjoying the view. Mainly at sunset. Sunset view around the clouds, a nice cool day. I tell people that, people said they're scared of skydiving, and I tell them fear is just lack of training or lack of experience or lack of training. So we hope that if you want to come skydiving, get good training, and the training will reduce the fear so you can enjoy the involvement of just flying. It's personal flight is what we enjoy. Well, like let's say people that come to skydiving. Skydiving was founded by a bunch of fun-loving individuals that thought, this is a good sport to jump out of an airplane and enjoy themselves. It's not the scary tactics that people think they're just crazy. We enjoy the high speed, we enjoy the thrill, the adrenaline that you get from jumping out of an airplane and throwing the parachute out and saving your life and landing successfully is something that has to be experienced. You just can't tell people what it is. It has to be something experienced.